Hello and welcome to the sixth video in this series for beginners programming Python C. In this video we're going to have a look at the string or str type you can see on the screen from the Python documentation here. It's quite a lot to do with strings, so we're not going to cover everything in this video. What I wanted to cover in this one was probably one of the most confusing things when you start programming in Python, and that's actually indexing in strings, how we get different amounts of characters out of strings. Just quickly to look what it says in Python about strings, because you can go to documentation yourself and have a quick look. It's text data. They're essentially lists. They're immutable lists. That means they can't be changed. So if we manipulate a string, what we actually do is get a new one back. They can be written in different ways with single, double or triple quoted. And in this video we'll have a look at the single and double quoted and why. And then most importantly of all, there are a huge amount of methods and things that we can do with strings, and we'll have a look at these in various videos during the rest of this series. Like I said, in this one I really want to concentrate on the indexing. At the end of this video I'll write a little program that asks the user for input and tries to detect whether that input is a palindrome or not. To start with, however, I'm going to go into the Python interpreter, which I'll assume you're familiar with where I am and what I'm doing now if you've watched some of the previous videos. And I'm going to declare myself a new string variable called string1. I'm going to call this hello, and it's in single quotes. I can, if I just then print the output of string1, we get hello. I can also declare a string with double quotes as well. And again here I have a string. So why single quotes and why double quotes? Well, where it's very useful is if in the string itself you need, say, a single quote. So if I declare string1 and I want the word don't in English, which has an apostrophe, if I use double quotes, I quite nicely have the string don't there, and it's printed in double quotes. The problem is if I try and declare don't with single quotes, and I think you can already see if you look at this, Python will not know what I want actually as my string. According to Python, I have the don as a string, and then for some reason I've got a t after the declaration and just a single quote doing not a lot, and I'll get an error. It doesn't understand the syntax there. And vice versa, if we need double quotes inside our string, we can use the single quotes to wrap around this. Another way of declaring strings when maybe you want lots of things inside the string, mixtures of singles and doubles, is you can use triple quotes like this, and this actually allows us to go multi-line. I can just as easily write hello in this way and it's still a string, and I can do it with triple quotes, and I can also do the triple quotes as single triple quotes, and this is what's often used in Python scripts to write comments throughout the code to tell people how the code is working, etc. The triple quotes are often used. Good, so let's make a new string. I'm going to make this string to make things easier, basically the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. And the reason I want to do this is because I want to explain one of the most confusing things when you start programming, and that's how we index things. So a string is essentially a list. It behaves a very, very similar way to lists in Python, which we'll see later on in the series. And what we have is a list of numbers here. There are characters, they're text, so we have a list of text characters here. And I can use very powerful indexing features in Python to extract these characters. So for example, if I want the third character in this list, which is the number 2, I can use square brackets, and I have to put the number of the position that this character is inside these square brackets. And when you first start programming, this can be a little confusing, but you might think the 0 is at position 1. Well, the 0 is actually at position 0, and the 1 is at position 1, and the 2 at position 2, etc. So if I ask for the character at position 2 in this string, I get the result 2. But the indexing is much more powerful than that, where Python really comes into its own. Actually, when we index, what Python is looking for is 3 parameters. I'll put an x for now, there, an x there, an x there, and an x there. So an x, a colon, an x, a colon, and an x. And what these 3 are, the first x is the start index, so I'll put the start. The next x is the to index, but not including. And the final one is every other character that we want to take. So if we had a 2, we would take a string from our start index to our to index, but only take every second character in this case. This would be take every character. The default is take every character. In a lot of cases with indexing, you rarely see the second dot there. There's always the assumption we want to take every character from and to, but it can be a very, very useful manipulator, as we'll shortly see. So let's use these double points then to extract a string. So if I want to go from, let's say, index position 3, which will be the character 3, up to index position 7 but not including, I get 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got a new string. I could make a new variable of that. and I have a substring from 3, 4, 5 and 6. If I leave the first number blank, it assumes I want to start at the string, and therefore I get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And likewise, if I leave the second number blank, so let's say we'll start at index 2, then I get the full string from the index position 2. If I leave the second one blank, but I put that third argument in and say I want every second character, I now get the 2, 4, the 6 and the 8. And likewise, if I ask for every third character, I get the 2, the 5 and the 8. What we can also do is we can say that we maybe want to go from the start of the string, or let's say we want to go from the third index of the string to, let's say, -2 characters from the end of the string. And now we get 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and we're missing the last 2 characters of the end of the string. This is also very useful. Maybe I want the whole string except the last 2 characters. I would just then put an empty, because I'll start from the beginning of the string, and then a -2. Also interesting, and allows for some tricks, is if we put a minus in the third character. So remember that if I want to go, say, from the second index up to not including the 7th index in every second character, then I'll get 2, 4 and 6. What if I put the every second character as a minus? Well, in this case I get an empty string, because the minus is going to go backwards through the string, but I'm asking to go backwards from index 2 to index 7. That doesn't quite work, because I'm not going backwards, I'm going forwards in the string. So let's go from index 7 to index 2 and go backwards every 2 characters, and I get 7, 5 and 3. And what's often used as a sort of demonstration of the indexing here is when you say I want to go from the end of the string to the beginning of the string and every character in reverse, and then you get your string reversed. And that's what we're going to use in our little script in a minute, where we're going to detect whether a user input is a palindrome. The other thing you can do is you can use a built-in function called len, which is very, very often used in Python, to ask what the length of a list is, and you can also ask what the length of a string is. And here we're told that our string is 10 characters long. So that's the basics of indexing and chopping up strings. What I'd like to do is I'd like to write a little script now where we can make a tiny little program that detects whether the user has entered a palindrome. So I'm in Notepad here, and we're going to write a little program that detects whether the user has entered a palindrome of at least 5 letters or more. So to start with then, I'm going to paste a little bit of code in, because you've seen this before. I'm going to assume you now know how to run a Python script. I'm going to print welcome and then ask the user to enter some input of at least 5 letters. We're not going to do any detection of whether it is definitely all letters or not. We'll come to those functions later on. And the first thing I want to do from this user input then is I want to get the length. And we've seen that in the console, so I'll say that the user in length is the length of the user input. And now I'm going to say that the palindrome is equal to the user in, and you saw this in the console. If I do the double point -1, then I get my palindrome here. I can then print to the console that what the word was that was entered, how many letters were also entered, and let's just quickly go to the console and check this is working okay. So let's enter race car, which is a palindrome, and we entered race car and we entered 7 letters, so that looks okay so far. And now I want to check whether everything is okay. So the first thing I'm going to ask is the user length less than 5? If it is, then I'm going to print, sorry, not enough letters. Otherwise, if pal, so our palindrome, is the value is equal to user in, remember I'm not using is to compare the object IDs, I'm using the value comparison here, then I'll print, great, cool, it's a palindrome. Otherwise, a palindrome wasn't entered. And then last but not least, we can print thanks for playing or something. And you'll notice inside the print statement here, I've used the double quotes here because I've got a single quote inside this string here. So I've wrapped this then in the double quotes. So let's see this program running in its full glory. I'll enter race car again, and you can see it said, cool, it is indeed a palindrome. Let's try and enter another word. I'll just enter the word and, which isn't long enough for a palindrome, and it'll say not enough letters in that, thank you for playing. And then let's enter something long, hello, and just some random letters. Now it says we entered 12 letters, but sorry, it's not a palindrome, thanks for playing. Good, so hopefully that's given you a brief introduction to strings and indexing strings and reversing strings and things. In later videos we'll spend much more time looking at some of the other functions like making everything uppercase, lowercase, splitting the strings up, detecting letters, numbers, all sorts of things like that. There's a huge amount of functions that come with strings in Python. And that's it then for this video. So comments, questions, welcome as always on YouTube, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks very, very much for watching.